you cashed that bro, and just walked out, like didn't say just walked out of the gym.
I am who I am.
I am who I am. I'm the bird.
I am.
Obviously, what he means to the game, what he means to the city of Boston and the Celtics, and you know, he's the ultimate Celtic. So it was an honor to meet him.
One of the greatest players to ever play this game. The kid from French Lick, you know, Boston, and one of the few guys that ever be in a three-point contest and shoot with a warm-up shirt on.
Larry Bird hasn't stepped on the hardwood in over 30 years, but somehow his name still echoes through the NBA. And not just from retired legends, but from active players, current stars, MVPs, and all-stars, talking about Larry like they saw him yesterday. But here's the thing, most of them never even saw him live in the flesh. They didn't grow up on Celtics versus Lakers. They weren't around to witness or feel his wrath. So why do they still talk about him? These are coming from players who never faced him, but still speak about him like he's a myth. A cold-blooded competitor who played like he already knew how the game would end. And when current NBA players talk about Larry, it's rarely just about stats. It's about greatness. The way he accomplished, the way he cemented his legacy, the way he controlled everything without ever needing to say much. This isn't about the 80s versus now. This is about one player whose presence left a mark so strong, it's still being felt by the best in the league today. LeBron James has always respected the history of the game. From the moment he entered the league, he made it clear. He wasn't just here to play, he was here to study, and part of that meant learning about the players who came before him, the legends who built the league. Larry Bird was one of those names that kept coming up. Even though LeBron never got to play against Larry, he understood his impact on the game early, which is why when he tied Bird in all-time triple-doubles, he had nothing but praise for the legend.
He played until he couldn't play no more, obviously. We know that. He just played till he literally couldn't play the game no more. He gave everything he had. And for young guys that don't know him, you know, they think of Larry Bird as a jump shooter. But he was so much more than that. He was a passer. He averaged double-digit rebounds. He defended, he took charges. And, you know, he's a straight-up complete basketball player, and me as a small forward.
To LeBron, Larry wasn't just a shooter or just a scorer. He was a basketball player in the purest sense. He passed like a point guard. He rebounded like a big. He scored like a superstar. And he led like a coach. He saw the game before it happened, and he didn't rely on athleticism or flash. He relied on skill, intelligence, and toughness. That's why LeBron never hesitates when Bird's name comes up. Because for him, Larry isn't just a legendary shooter or a Celtics icon. He's one of the most complete, intelligent, and competitive players to ever step on the floor. And even decades later, LeBron still sees Bird as a blueprint for winning basketball. During Paul George's early years with the Indiana Pacers, Larry Bird wasn't just a name in the rafters. He was in the building. As an executive with the team, Bird was around practices, watching quietly from the sidelines. He didn't say much, but when he did anything basketball related, everyone noticed. One day, PG was getting shots up at practice, casually working through a shooting drill. He looked up and saw Bird, older, retired, in formal wear, heading toward the exit, just about to leave the facility. Nothing unusual until a loose ball rolled toward Larry.
To this point, I've never seen him play. Like, I've never seen him shoot, never seen him, like, you know, none of that. I always had this vision of him from, you know, YouTube videos and old clips like that, but the ball rolls over to him. And I'm sure he probably haven't shot the ball in, like, I don't know, years at this point. So he picks the ball up, bro, shoots that cash from three, too. Like, and he's in slacks. He's in a, you know, button down. Right. He got his loafers on. One shot, like, and it's just crazy, the story of, I was just like, I'm big on moments, and to me that was just like I said, he could have fucked that up. Like that could have just been a wild shot. Like
It's the air ball.
That was the coolest story.
For Paul George, that single shot said everything he needed to know about Larry Bird. It wasn't just about the make, it was the way he made it. Smooth, effortless, just another day for a guy who had done it all. And that moment stuck with PG. It turned Bird from a distant legend into something more real. Someone who still had it, who never lost that edge, even after retirement. From then on, Larry wasn't just an icon in Paul's eyes, the kind of greatness you don't talk about, you just witness. Kevin Durant didn't watch Larry Bird growing up, but his name kept coming up. Coaches, analysts, older players, everyone talked about Larry like he wasn't just great, but important. And the more KD studied the game, the clearer it got. Bird didn't just play his position, he revolutionized it.
Grew up watching Larry Bird, well, not really, he's older, but you grew up kind of knowing the legend of Larry Legend, and just a love for the game and love for practice and love for shooting. I think that we're similar in those areas, but he allowed players like myself to kind of dream big and think big at that position and to do things that traditional small forwards, I guess, or big men weren't doing, and he's one of the first guys you've seen.
Before Bird, forwards weren't expected to do everything. They were scorers, rebounders, maybe solid defenders. But Bird broke that mold. He passed like a point guard, shot like a two guard, and ran the offense like a coach on the floor. He made being a complete player at that size the new standard. That shift opened the door for guys like KD, long, skilled, and versatile. Not just scorers, but creators. And while their games are different, Durant knows Bird made that path possible. He changed how the position was viewed forever. To KD, Larry Bird isn't just a Celtics legend. He's part of the reason he plays the way he does. It wasn't just his skill that stood out. It was his mentality, the edge, the confidence, the way he competed without needing to be loud. Durant has always appreciated players who let their game speak, and Bird was a master at that. Bird showed the league that a forward could do it all, and that the game didn't need flash to be revolutionary. When Miles Turner first entered the league, he didn't expect to meet a Hall of Famer on day one. But as a rookie with the Indiana Pacers, one of the first people he crossed paths with was Larry Bird, who at the time was running the team.
Bro, people don't realize how big he is, bro. In person, he's all of like 6'10", 6'11", easy money. Like even at like his elder age, he's still like huge, but he has such an intimidating aura about him, bro. Yeah. Very intimidating aura. And I remember he's the one who drafted me. For people who don't know, like he was the GM at the time when I first got to Indy. And you know, obviously everybody knows Larry Legend, and once I get there, I shake his hand. Birmingham handshake, looks me in the eyes. All right, son, you ready to get to work? Like it's just like, like he was just such a cool dude, bro. So laid back, but he is about his business, bro. He's not into the old hokey pokey old social media, bro. It's work, bro. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, I drafted you here for a reason. You know, you're here for a reason. Like I'm here to work. He's not with all the games and stuff, bro. Very serious guy, intense dude.
Bird was running the team at the time. What surprised Miles was how laid back Bird seemed. But underneath that cool exterior was someone who still cared deeply about the game. He didn't talk often, but when he did, it was impactful. He wanted you to focus on nothing else but the game. What threw Miles off was how laid back Bird seemed at first. He wasn't intense in the way some people are. He was chill, even approachable, but under that was a quiet edge. When Larry spoke, it was sharp and honest. No wasted words. Just real basketball talk from someone who clearly knew the game inside and out. And in that moment, Turner felt something he'd never felt before. Greatness. Not in a loud, flashy way, but in a calm, almost unspoken one. Just being in the same space as Larry made the game feel bigger. Every time Luka Doncic hits a tough shot, throws a no-look pass, or controls a game at his own pace, someone brings up the name Larry Bird. And it's not hard to see why. The size, the IQ, the confidence, the pace. Luka is one of the few modern players whose game feels like it comes from another era, which is when, being compared to Larry Legend, he made sure they know Larry was on a tier of his own.
I mean, yeah, I looked at it. I saw a lot of films how he played, but you can't compare me to Larry Bird. The thing he's done is just way. More and more games to go, a long time, so you can't compare me to Larry Bird. And I just want to keep hooping, having fun out there playing basketball.
But Luka, he's not buying into the hype. He's said it himself. He doesn't want to be compared to Larry Bird, because in his eyes, Bird is one of the true greats, a legend, someone who changed the game and earned everything with skill, toughness, and heart. For Luka, being mentioned in the same sentence as Larry is flattering, but it also feels like too much, too soon. He knows he's still writing his own story, and to him, Bird's legacy stands on a level of its own. It's not about disrespecting the compliment, it's about understanding the weight of it. And that kind of humility is exactly why people do compare the two. Because, like Larry, Luka just lets his game speak first. James Harden has done things on a basketball court most players could only dream of. MVP awards, scoring titles, record-breaking nights. So when Harden passed Bird on the NBA's all-time scoring list, he took a moment to recognize what it actually meant, because that wasn't just a number. That was Larry Bird, one of the toughest, smartest, most respected players to ever touch the floor.
Oh, obviously we know how great Larry was and the things he did in Boston. A legend, a legend. I think I play the game the right way, and hopefully, good things happen for me. Passing, one of the greatest to ever play basketball is it's a great honor, and I just got to continue to go, because at the end of the day, I want my name to be, a mission with those greats.
For Harden, growing up watching the game, Bird wasn't about flash. He was about winning. He was about doing everything at a high level. Passing, shooting, rebounding, competing. And when James found out he had moved past him on the scoring list, it didn't feel like a flex, it felt like an honor. In Harden's eyes, Bird is one of those rare legends whose game still holds up decades later. He changed what was possible for forwards and built a reputation that never faded. And even though their games are completely different, Harden knows the league was shaped by guys like Larry. Passing him? That wasn't about outshining a legend, it was about respecting one. Jaylen Brown didn't grow up watching Larry Bird live, but by the time he became a Celtic, he already knew the weight of the name. Bird wasn't just a part of the team's history, he was the history. So when Jaylen saw him walk into the Celtics locker room for the first time, it didn't feel normal. It felt like a moment.
Kind of the Celtic legend of legends.
Yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to meet him. He came in and said some words to us as a group. We kind of he said hello to everybody, but we didn't get a chance to really communicate or talk, but it was great. That was my first time ever seeing him. Up close in person. I haven't seen him around Boston or anything, so it was pretty cool to see him around.
He didn't even say much. Bird just showed up, calm, quiet, walking through like it was still his house. And in a way, it was. Jaylen was in awe. Not starstruck like seeing a celebrity, more like standing in front of someone whose legacy helped build the foundation he now plays on. What stuck with Jaylen wasn't just that Bird had been great, it was that his presence still meant something. You could feel it. You could see how the staff, players, everyone around gave that extra level of respect. Not only that, but he had great words of wisdom to share with every single player in that locker room. To Jaylen, Bird is more than a Hall of Famer. He's a living part of what it means to be a Celtic. And seeing him in person, that just made it real. When Jason Tatum was drafted by the Boston Celtics, he didn't just join a team. He stepped into one of the most storied legacies in all of sports. Being a Celtic isn't like being part of any other franchise. It's about history, banners, legends, expectations, and at the top of that mountain, Larry Bird. Tatum knew what came with the jersey, the pressure, the comparisons, the weight. He was stepping into a city that doesn't just love basketball, it lives it. And there's a different kind of pride in Boston, built on grit, loyalty, and winning. And when fans talk about greatness, they always start with one name, Bird.
Wearing a Celtics uniform comes with a lot of pride, and the best Celtic ever is Larry Bird. And even if I never reach that, maybe I do, maybe I don't. You aspire to chase that guy. It comes with a level of focus and motivation every single day. To see the impact that he had on the game of basketball, and obviously with the Celtics, winning 3 championships, 3 MVPs in a row, which is incredible. And I always wanted to be the best, and he's, in my opinion, the best Celtic ever. He did it the right way, and he's a great guy to chase in a sense.
For Tatum, Bird isn't just a Celtics icon. He's the pinnacle. The way he led, the way he won, the way he carried himself. Tatum respects that deeply. It's about embodying that mindset, that competitive fire, that unshakable belief in winning. Every time Tatum steps on the floor, especially in front of the Boston crowd, he knows he's continuing something bigger than himself. And while he's still writing his story, one thing is clear. Jason Tatum doesn't shy away from the shadow of Larry Bird. He uses it as fuel. Because in Boston, greatness doesn't come easy, and he's determined to earn it. Larry Bird didn't need to play above the rim. He didn't need to be loud, flashy, or marketable. He just needed a ball, a defender, and a reason. Because once the game started, Larry did what he always did, took control. He saw plays before they happened. He talked trash without blinking. He backed up every word with buckets, rebounds, passes, and wins. There was no moment too big, no situation too intense, and he did it all with the same calm, focused, almost icy presence. That's what made him different. It wasn't just that he was great, it's that he was unshakable. He didn't try to impress you. He just made you remember him. And long after he left the floor, that memory stuck. Larry Bird became the kind of player that people talk about decades later, not because they're chasing nostalgia, but because they're still trying to understand how he did what he did. The game has changed. The league has evolved, but players like Larry, they stay legendary. And legends like that don't fade. They echo. Every era, every generation, still here. Still Larry.